Not Here to Make Friends, or How Shinsou Hitoshi Found His Soulmate. Written by ChangeGirlYuki. Read by Eleanor Elizabeth. I'm not here to make friends. Hitoshi didn't know how often he'd said that sentence since he came to UA. He had said it to those who tried to approach him in Gen Ed class or during lunch break. He had said it to the teachers and to his mentor Aizawa. He had said it to Class 1A2 when he'd gotten the transfer into Heroics after the sports festival. And it was true. He wanted to focus on training, and now that he'd actually made it into Heroics, there was a ton to catch up on. Besides, Hitoshi knew that even though people were a lot more tolerant about quirks here, there were still those who just wanted to befriend him to be safe from his quirk and on his good side, in case he might turn into a villain they seemed destined to be. Or so he had heard his whole life. Now, though, the words didn't make it past his lips, and Hitoshi for once didn't feel the need to say them, because this, right in front of him and looking as surprised and shocked as he was Hitoshi's soulmate. Of course, Midoriya Izuku had crossed paths with Hitoshi before. They had fought against each other during the sports festival, and after, Izuku had tried to approach Hitoshi on more than one occasion, wanting to know more about him and his quirk. The nerdy brunette was a quirk enthusiast, or so Hitoshi had heard. He'd even seen him with his notebooks a couple of times before, but he had managed to dodge Midoriya, and then school had started again, and hero classes had been busy with their internships and so on. And now they were in the same class, and they were assigned to work in pairs. The fluffy-haired brunette didn't let Hitoshi escape his questions or presence at all. Midoriya had joined him at the table at first, and they'd worked on their assigned task, which had been fine. That was what they were supposed to do after all, but when they were done, Midoriya had smiled the bright sunshine smile at Hitoshi, and when he had been about to... Well, Hitoshi didn't know what Midoriya had wanted to say, because right then the student with the explosion quirk, Bakugo, had bumped into Midoriya from behind, and Midoriya had lost his balance and hit his hand against the table, the one where he had broken his fingers during their fight and which Hitoshi was sure was still somewhat sensitive. He'd gotten confirmation on that right away when Midoriya had hissed in pain, grabbing his hand with his other injured one and closing his eyes. Without a second thought, Hitoshi reached out and grabbed the hand to inspect it and see if there was anything he could do to help. He had still had no idea what had possessed him back then. But when their hands touched, it had been there, their soul mark. Everyone had a soul mark somewhere on their skin. It wandered around like it was alive. Well, it kind of was, as it was a part of one's soul. And when one would meet their significant other, their soul marks would become one, a beautiful combination of both marks and souls. "You're my soulmate," Midoriya, was he allowed to call him Izuku now, whispered, wide green eyes staring up at Hitoshi and then back to the soul mark, currently visible on both their hands, a black cat with purple eyes cuddling a fluffy green bunny. Yeah, Hitoshi said, still shocked by this miracle. How was it possible that they hadn't found out earlier? They had physically fought after all, but here it was, proof that they belonged to each other. Wow. There was a lot of wonder and happiness in Izuku's eyes. I never thought... I'm so glad I met you, Hitoshi. If it was possible, Izuku's smile was even brighter this time. And while Hitoshi knew that he should keep his distance, that he should focus on his studies and not on a relationship, which he would soon be taught was bullshit, one needed contacts and to learn to trust the possible future colleagues after all. How was Hitoshi supposed to say no to his soulmate? Still somewhat dazed, Hitoshi didn't notice when Izuku's smile turned into a sassy one, his eyes filling with mischief. You know what this means, right? Huh? Was all Hitoshi could manage, too confused to see where this was leading. You now have to make friends, because there's no way I'll ever leave your side, Izuku explained, smiling innocently at him. Well, as innocently as it could get with the sassy tone he had used. Oh well, if it would make his soulmate happy, Hitoshi could make a few friends, he guessed. The end.